Hi again, everyone. My name is Victoria. I'm a director of threat research in Kela, and it is great to have you here. And today we're going to discuss leaks of Conti's internal data that happened in the end of February. So first of all, let's just remember what happened. As all of you probably heard, a Ukrainian researcher leaked internal conversations of Conti's members as a response to the Conti support of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He did it on Twitter using an account called Conti Leaks. The leaks included various types of information, including logs from messaging platforms, Jabber and Rocket Chat. And most of the Jabber chats seem to be individual chats between each two members, and Rocket Chats include mostly group conversations. In addition, a few days later, two accounts called TrickBot Leaks and TrickLeaks leaked more Jabber logs and also files doxing alleged TrickBot members. Interestingly, around 25% of these Jabber logs were in the initial Conti Leaks Jabber logs. So we suppose this information can be treated as one big leak of Conti's internal data. And this is the data that Kela analyzed for our report and this webinar. This is how it looks in Kela's Darkbeast, not as just a list of logs, but as private and group chats between members. And before we jump into specific TTPs of Conti and the organizational structure, I just want to describe in general the group that we've seen in these conversations. As Kela noticed, members of the group discussed ransomware strains called Rook, Maze, and even Conti themselves as separate operations. They also mentioned using their own lockers, meaning ransomware. Locker is a slangy word for ransomware. So for example, Conti was long ago suspected to be a successor of the Rook ransomware gang. It was based on code similarities, based on SAM template used in ransom notes and some other things. And in August 2020, we do see that one of the members of Conti members says, Rooks and our guys will start learning to collaborate. However, as we've noticed, Rook is discussed only as a person, so it is not clear if this person is connected to the Rook operation or is just using its name. The same way we saw a user named Networker in these Jabber conversations, but most likely this user has no connection to Networker ransomware, at least not at the time of these conversations. Another example, one of the members asking another one to find samples of Maze ransomware, of Rook ransomware, and to develop their own locker based on the samples. Moreover, we've seen at least several times the actor talk about Conti in the third person. So the question is, what can it mean? And Kela suggests that at least this Jabber and Rocket Chat service originally belonged to a gang of cyber criminals who were not a part of a specific ransomware group. But they were engaged in ransomware activities, in ransomware attacks. They seem to have used different ransomware strains, and they seem to have collaborated with other cyber criminals. And eventually, it led to a formation of the Conti operation as it became known in the recent year, and as we saw this operation in these leaks. So how did this operation work? We saw that the group is highly organized, and we saw that it is divided into different teams, which of course include people who compromise the network, develop ransomware, test and obfuscate the malware, so-called hackers, coders, reverse engineering specialists, cryptors, testers, and other members. It also includes members working with stolen data and looking for pressure methods. OSINT specialists is not the name invented by us. This is the actual name that was used in Conti's conversation. They called it the OSINT team. Of course, the team also included negotiators and even callers to blackmail a company via calls to employees. And Conti even had IT support and has IT support and HR for finding new members. And interestingly, as we saw in the conversations, not all the members know that they're working for cyber criminals. So based on one of the conversations, we have confirmation that last year, Conti had more than 100 people in the team. At least some of them were collaborating physically in one office. And we saw it based on their conversation about ordering lunch or discussing some physical objects around them. And we also seen an average salary budget for 1 month. This specific sum was discussed by one of the members asking from a high-ranking manager to send this sum to a Bitcoin wallet and later to distribute to all the members of the team. I see that some questions are appearing. I will answer all the questions after I'm finished with the presentation. So now let's go to malware and tools. We saw multiple confirmations that Conti was relying on PrickBot, Emotet, and Buzzer Backdoor for delivering the ransomware, which was also researched before the leak was published. We also saw confirmations of some of the TTPs discovered last year when Conti's manuals, so-called Conti's manuals, were leaked by one of the members of the group. And we've also seen some new techniques discussed in this leak. For example, buying legitimate software to improve the malware. We've seen examples that Conti tried to set up demos with security firms, Carbon Black and Sophos, and they attempted to test these products and to improve their malware based on these products to evade detection. And at least with Carbon Black, we saw confirmation that the actors succeeded in buying the products. Also very interesting was to find that the Diablo ransomware is a side project developed by Conti, discussed by Conti's members responsible for developing this ransomware. For us, it was very interesting to discover conversations discussing collaboration with initial access brokers, who are actors selling remote network access to corporations. And multiple times we've seen actors discussing new initial access brokers that will supply network access to Conti. For example, the actor we already seen on forums called RDP Corp. You can see here his announcement on exploit. And this actor was going to buy each access and apparently then to sell it to ransomware affiliates, acting as a middleman. So as we've seen, this actor said to Conti that they ask 35% of ransom for a domain admin access, which is a high privileged access, and 15% for user privileged access. Conti agreed to take only unprivileged access, possibly also confirm that they are skilled enough to elevate privileges and gain domain admin privileges. We also seen one of the actors offering to use a strategy of just buying all available network access for a fixed price. As you see here, he said, my partner knows a guy who does it. This guy received payments, ransom payments of 5 million and proving that this strategy is working good. So initial access brokers seem to be also very important part of Conti's supply chain. In our another report about ransomware trends of the last year, we managed to establish connection between network access sold on forums and eventual ransomware attack. So you can also go ahead and download this report, which I will not discuss in details now. And now going to victims that were discovered in the leak. We found multiple leads to victims that were announced on the blog, and we've seen them before, but also to victims that weren't named anywhere and apparently paid the ransom. So we're still analyzing the leak, we're still finding new victims, but we already used this set of 100 victims to see how the Conti attack is performed. So the attack is divided into several logical steps. First of all, of course, hacking teams compromise a company's network, they deploy ransomware, and they steal data. But then the process doesn't end, it only starts because an OSINT team collects information about the victim that can be used for further threats. For example, contacts, top managers, and all various kinds of information. The OSINT team and also other members also analyze stolen data. They try to brute force password protected folders. They try to prepare posts for Conti's blog. They also prepare reports that can be used for calling to a company's employees or managers and blackmailing them. Then the OSINT teams, the negotiation team, set ransom depending on the company's revenue. Usually they find out the revenue based on business database services such as ZoomInfo, DNB, and other similar services. Then negotiations take place if, of course, a company agrees to participate. And from what we've seen, usually the person responsible for preparing the blog post, for analyzing the data, also talks with victims. And if the company agrees to pay ransom, it receives a decryptor. In some cases, it also receives a report about methods used to compromise its network. And if the company agrees to pay ransom after the blog was published, the post is deleted. As you see, after deploying ransomware, there are multiple stages. Mostly the stages are designed to pressure a victim to force them to pay ransom. Though these stages can be very quickly. For example, we've seen that in 1 week, actors set the ransom, started negotiations, discussed pressure methods, and received the ransom, as you see on this slide. In this case, the actor promised that every day they will be calling the management of the company and telling them about the incident, the stolen data. So we don't know if they did it eventually, but the ransom was paid a little more than in 1 week. And also here you can see a conversation between actors discussing the amount of ransom. You see that probably hard for those of you not reading Russians, but we've used some original screenshots in this presentation. So the revenue of the company was 19 millions, and the ransom set was initially 800,000, and in the end, the company paid $500,000. So in conversations Keller reviewed, most of the ransom demanded were usually equal to 1-3% of the company's revenue. And during negotiations, a ransom could be lowered. However, as we've seen, Conti was not always ready to accept a similar amount. For one of the victims, we've seen members discussing that the ransom amount that the victim agreed to pay is too small. And by the way, it was almost $500,000. And following the discussions, the actors decided not to receive the money. They just proceeded with publicly disclosing the victim on the blog to punish them and also to intimidate other victims. So Conti's methods of working with stolen data are also interesting enough to discuss them separately. For example, as I mentioned, they try to hack into password-protected files and to try to receive more sensitive information, which of course can be used to persuade a victim to pay a ransom. On the screenshot, you see one of the actors asking his manager to assist with hacking passwords for these password-protected files. Conti also may use specific tools to extract email, other contacts of a victim company, of company's employees, partners, other third parties, also again, then to use them to blackmail. What is also interesting that Conti's actors prepare hidden blog posts about victims. It means that these posts can be accessed only via specific URL, and they send these hidden blog posts to a victim to intimidate them by how easy the victim's data can be accessed. As you see on the screenshot, this is a negotiation chat where one of the affiliates, negotiator, sends to the victim a URL to blog posts about them. And he writes, this page is hidden for public, but it will be published when the timer is finished. And if a victim agrees to pay, the post is of course never released. If negotiation fails, the blog becomes publicly accessible. And we've also actually seen one of the actors describing it as a significant leverage. He said, say what you like, but a hidden blog is really a cool thing. It is working on that. As I mentioned, if the victim pays after the post was released, Conti deletes it. Here is a specific example. We've seen a company to be published on Conti's blog on February 15. And 2 days later, an actor asked from his manager to provide him with a Bitcoin wallet for this victim and to send them deletion logs. So when we reviewed Conti's website, we found that the entry for this company is not available anymore. So apparently the company paid the ransom and the blog post was deleted. And also, Keller saw that in several cases at least, Conti's actors pretended to have more data than they had. So when the ransom was paid, the actors were just sending fake deletion logs and were celebrating how they managed to receive ransom with no data. For example, when discussing one of the victims, an actor called Bio complained to his manager that he could not find files requested by the victim. And he suggested that the team that was attacking the network, that was stealing the files, this team simply did not download all the files from the file tree. And this file tree was later demonstrated to the victim. In another case, only 8 gigabytes of data were stolen from a victim's network. And of course, to the victim, the actor said that the amount of stolen data is much more. And here on the screenshot, you can see an actor wondering how to provide these files to the victim. And what he decides to do, he decides just to give them the deletion logs and just to say that all the data was deleted and the blog post as well. So these were the most important highlights of our research. You can also download it on our site. But before I come to some concluding words, I want just to remember what we discussed in this webinar. First of all, evolution of the group, whose conversations we saw in these leaks. We've seen its members using different ransomware strains, talking about Conti and Rook in third person, which can suggest that the group initially was a group of cyber criminals that evolved in a Conti operation as we know it now, possibly in parallel with other groups that also became part of Conti. We've also discussed an organizational structure of Conti, which includes different teams and is highly organized, and it really resembles a legitimate business. We also saw confirmation of Conti using known malware and tools, as well as new information about their techniques, for example, buying legitimate products, and we've also seen them developing side projects, namely Diablo ransomware. When dissecting a Conti attack, we saw multiple stages taking place after the network compromise. And the stages are designed to deploy ransomware, to steal data, and to persuade the victims to pay eventually. Especially interesting for us was to uncover Conti's collaboration with initial access brokers as another method of getting initial access. And we've also discussed Conti's methods of working with stolen data and hidden blocks as one of these methods to pressure victims and to force them to pay ransom. So to conclude, I want to say that the leak of Conti's internal information contains a massive amount of data. They were already compared to the Panama Papers. So we expect that the further analysis of the leak will provide more insights on Conti's TTPs. But it is already clear that the group operates like a highly organized, legitimate business. And also it is possible that more information about other cyber criminals will be leaked following this incident. So therefore, we suggest that defenders should monitor cybercrime sources to detect such leaks and to use them for protection, to research them, as we did in this report. So thank you for your attention. And I just want to quickly check if we have any questions. I see that there was a question about recorded session. And just to say it out loud, yes, the webinar is recorded and we will send it to all the participants. So if you have any more questions, it is time to ask them now. If not, I believe we can finish. We also have on the call our Chief Research Officer, Irina. If she wants to add something, I believe this is the time.
No, thank you, Victoria. I think it was a great presentation, and also just the tip of the iceberg, as you said, on the amount of information and the amount of insights, even if they're not cybersecurity related, but they're truly an interesting glimpse into cyber criminal operation, who also want to have work-life balance, and they have troubles with managing their time, and they're just people like us. So please keep updated with our further research and further insights on this. And I invite you all, those of you who haven't seen our products yet, you're welcome to go to our website, and aside from requesting to download the research itself, also register for a free trial of our Darkbeast platform, which allows you full access to all of our database of years worth of intelligence and data. There you could read the actual discussions on your own if you haven't yet, for example, or just see what cybercrime ecosystem is about. So there you just go to the website, it's pretty out there. So we will look forward for those of you who would like to try it. So thank you, and of course, thank you everyone for joining this. I do not see any further questions, so if there are none, I think we can conclude this session. And thank you, Victoria, again.
Thank you all. Bye.